Good morning, y'all. Welcome to IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Welcome to the Wednesday show. Text Homer here. Ian Boyd. As always on the Wednesday show, we talk more schematics, more football, on the field type stuff. So today we're actually going to talk about how the Texas offense can morph and be able to beat these elite defenses. We have some likely coming up on the schedule, and we knew we had issues in the past kind of scaling our offense. What can the new players do, including Arch, to change that for us? And then we have Arch Manning's most important drive of 2024 against Mississippi State, and we will go through that drive play by play. It's a 2-minute drill, and we'll see what occurred there and what we like. Okay, first things first, let's introduce the initial premise, Ian. We have some new guys, but that also might lead to teams playing us in a certain way. So how does that work out, and how's that different than last year's strategy?
So last year, teams figured out the best way to defend Texas was single high or really 3 deep zone, cover 3. And then you could get an extra guy in the box to stop the run. And Ewers couldn't beat 3 deep zone defenders with deep shots well enough on that end, but then they still had 8 in the box, so they'd stop the run. And so without the deep shots and without the run, that's it.
Yeah.
Check that. Yeah, you could scheme a bunch of short intermediate routes, maybe throw for 300 yards against Georgia, but not score any touchdowns because your red zone offense isn't good. That's still an option. That was still an option Texas had. But I mean, again, if they hadn't hit that 4th and 13 shot in the high red zone or whatever on Arizona State, that would have been curtains for the season, and this would have been an even bigger talking point than it already was, right?
Yeah. So we faced a lot of single high, a lot of 3 matchy kind of. I just think of Vanderbilt, but.
Yeah.
And that was probably. Do you think schematically that was the most interesting game to watch? I thought Vanderbilt was like really fascinating, and I thought Quinn did a good job for that situation. That was like Quinn's. I thought Quinn moved the ball forward better under that situation with his limitations that he had in other games. What did you think?
Yeah, well, within his limitations,
right,
and while playing injured, which probably impacted his deep shot ability. I think he probably would have been a little better beating some of those 3 deep zone defenses if he'd been a little healthier.
Yeah.
Forever Cedar Park High, that's my alma mater as well. So here's the thing, though. Arch adds lethality to both ends. So Arch can hit those deep windows. He's more aggressive attacking them than Quinn. And he's also more dangerous in the run game because he can help the offense get a +1 by reading a defender in the option. So your 3 deep zone is maybe not good enough, and your run defense is also a little weaker with Arch.
Perfect.
This is why Dylan Gabriel was so effective in college, even though he had a lot of limitations, because he could hit those deep shots and he could run the ball and help the run game. Same with Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe was one of the least developed, skilled quarterbacks we've seen in a while. But he was good at throwing deep shots, and he could run like the wind, and he could run a lot.
And if you're going to be limited, man, have those be your strengths.
Yes. The 2 most – and they play off of each other too.
Yeah. Like you said, you can attack both sides of it, and so whatever they're doing, you can still exploit either way. So whatever they lean to, you still have an answer for.
Oh, you know what? I went back an article here in my synopsis. I forgot we were further along in the series. So anyway, I think teams are – I had apparently probably already explained on a show with you and just forgot. I think teams are going to play more 2 high against Texas next year.
Yep.
And just see if they can take body blows against the run game and hold up and get stops. And some teams are really good at that. Like the very best teams can play too high and they can still stop the run.
Yeah, you say it here. We hear this kind of often. Good defenses stop the run. Great defenses stop the run from too high. Because the insta thing, as soon as you see two safeties, people are like, well, why aren't you running on them? Well, generally, yes. But there's a few defenses on the team, right? Potentially Florida, Georgia, perhaps Oklahoma, perhaps Texas A&M that have this ability this year to stay in too high, limit the deep shot, while also still being able to support the run effectively.
Yep. Notre Dame is going to be like that also if Texas happens to run into them. Yeah, anyway, that's going to be the thing. So you got to be ready to beat that. And I have laid out.
I was going to say. And then the rest of the article goes on to him explaining how exactly you would do that.
Yeah, there are 3 paths that I've elucidated in this article. What do you do when the other team plays too high and they dare you to run the ball?
Number 1, you get big and run the dang ball.
Yeah. I guess you don't have to get big, but when you're in 12 personnel, you can either force them out of too high because you create all these gaps and then they have to bring a safety down to
stay sound
and avoid, just your running back being able to run clean through holes, or they got a 2 gap or whatever.
So here, just quick thing. So if you have 2 tight ends, you're creating 8 gaps. You normally have 6. With 1 tight end, you have 7. And with a second tight end, you have 8. When you have 8 gaps, you need 8 players. Theoretically, sometimes people gap and a half to blah, blah, blah. We're not going to get that confusing with it. You're going to have 8 gaps that you have to cover. So you're going to need 8 defenders. And when you need 8 defenders to cover a gap, you're generally going to force offenses more into 1 high situations.
Yeah.
Which is man looks. So that's the value. So sometimes it's not even – there's a schematic value to adding these 2 tight ends. Why Sark likes this, because generally it'll force the defense into more predictable looks. When you force the defense into more predictable looks, that's, of course, better for your offense and your quarterback. They can anticipate far easier. So that's why you'll see Sark getting big beyond just the machismo of it, that there's a real schematic advantage to having 2 tight ends on the field.
Yeah. So you can count it too. You have 7 blockers now, which means they need at least 7 guys, or else one of your blockers goes and picks off the defensive back or whatever.
Right.
7 blockers. So you need 7 defenders for each blocker, and then 7 blockers creates 8 gaps. So if you just want to gap out and have a guy responsible for every single gap without making one guy guard 2, which is hard. Although that's what the great teams will do.
Right.
Then you need to drop the safety down as well.
And annoyingly, some of the great defenses will still stay in nickel versus this and still have a little bit of success. That's frustrating when they stay in nickel against big and it's still working. That can be a little tricky too.
That's what Michigan does.
Yep.
And it is formidable. But it was also pretty contingent on Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham. I think they're actually still going to be pretty good at it. They've made it a point to recruit guys for it, but that's what we
mean with a nickel. We mean a 5th defensive back, and generally when you're facing 2 tight ends, you're going to sub out that 5th defensive back, and you're going to add more of a linebacker style body or a safety style body. But some teams like Michigan will just still keep that nickel in that DB, and if they can still have success there, then you're just then it's just not fun for the offense, because that's just a really sound defense, and their players are just good.
Or Texas last year would use a lot of times when other teams use 2 tight ends, they'd use Jelani McDonald as the nickel.
It's a great
especially
answer.
Teams usually, with the exception of Michigan under Harbaugh, when teams play with 2 tight ends, they're doing it to get a receiving tight end in a favorable position. So at least one of them will be like a big blocker, like in this case, probably the Y. And then the H would be more of your receiving tight end, and he could move around in and out of the backfield. If it's like the defense plays a little guy, then you bring him into the box and you run him over. If the defense plays a big linebacker to stop the run, then you send the H out into space and make them cover. That's the conceit of 12 personnel. The problem with Texas' 12 personnel this year is that we don't know if they have the big tight end. They got Jack injuries, can be that H. He can move in and out of the box and torment you in the passing game. But I don't know if he's going to be blocking. Certainly in the run game, he's not abusing little people. And then you got
Washington,
who they were trying to teach him to block as quickly as they could, and then he got hurt. You have Amari Winston, who is 6'1", 240, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to line up like an H. He doesn't have the length. They could maybe use him like Juan Davis as like an off-ball mobile fullback. But you still need the guy who has the length and the strength to line up in line next to a defensive end and block him and not get just put on skates and driven into the backfield. The only guy and also Malik Agbo, who they used like that, situationally transferred out. So the only guy they have like that is Spencer Shannon, who may or may not be good enough to do it. And if he is, I think we'll see this at least some next year. But if he's not, then they just don't have anybody else to get into this and make it work.
So get big and run might not be our best path, personnel-wise.
Yeah. I mean, they are going to do this against like Sam Houston State. And they'll probably do it like if they're up big on Arkansas or someone like that, you'll see them do it next year for sure, I think, as long as they're like remotely competent. But then the question is, can you do it against Georgia? Can you do it against Florida? Can you do it against Oklahoma? When the game is actually competitive, is this actually something that's useful to you? There are definitely some question marks. Jackson Miles asks if Nick Townsend, right?
Yeah.
If Nick Townsend could be the blocking tight end in this, probably not. He is like 220 right now. I'm sure he'll balloon in size and add muscle super easily.
Well, he was just doing track stuff, right? So so it's like that'll slim you down naturally, anyways.
Yeah. He slimmed down for track. He'll balloon back up for football. It'll be super easy for him to add weight and to add strength. He's a very naturally explosive and powerful athlete. So theoretically, he could become a good blocker, but I don't think he's done just a ton of it at high school like he'll need to at Texas. He hasn't been getting a full off season to get really good at it. And that's just not something freshmen. Like, name the last freshman tight end who came in and was a menace as a blocker.
Across football. It's like even trying to think. Because we had Sanders, and remember year one was Sanders was all the Jordan Washington treatment. It's like trying to get him to block. That's going to be the tricky part. AR asked, did Georgia stay in nickel?
No, because when Texas played with two tight ends, it just gave Georgia an excuse to put Jalen Walker as the Sam. And anytime you gave Georgia an excuse to play Jalen Walker as an outside linebacker opposite like Chambliss or whoever, they accepted it with a smile on their face. And then they beat the crap out of you.
So they had even a better option than keeping the nickel on the field.
Yeah.
All right, so we don't know for sure if we have the ability to max out this style. We know Sark loves it. We know that it creates conflicts in defenses. We know that the most elite defenses, though, have answers here, whether it's a personnel answer like they have a Jalen Walker, or it's a Michigan where they will keep their nickel out there regardless. They're kind of inflexible to your formation tricks. And then a lot of them, like we said, will play this too high look, disguise it, rotate down, but also they'll just stay in that. Because defensive coordinators love to be able to frustrate you by stopping your run game and staying too high, because now you've attacked the deep ball and the short. So let's look at path 2. a high risk path that will likely only be reserved for these elite level games. You don't want to break this out in non-conference and get them hurt, but there's 3 or 4 games a year where, you're probably going to have to go to this option here of running arch.
Yep. Running arch makes it very easy. If you scroll down just a little bit, I drew an X over one of the ends.
Yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah, it means you don't have to block him anymore. I mean, the guy you choose not to block moves around based on the formation and the concept, but the idea is cancel one of those guys out, and it's almost like you have a tight end that's doing it for you. But you still have the slot receiver, the H, out in space. So they have to cover slot, and they're man down up front, depending on how good they are with their option tactics. And so they basically have to use the safety aggressively in the run game.
So explain what do you mean by you can just cancel out this end when your quarterback can run? What does that look like to the fan?
You could run a counter play towards the tight end side, pull those 2 backside linemen to the tight end side.
Mm-hmm.
Give to the running back going that way. The running back needs to be on the other side of the quarterback to do this, but
I mean, he could counter. He could do a weird counter step.
Not for the quarterback keeper part.
Oh yeah.
And then if that defensive end chases after the running back because he's unblocked, quarterback pulls the ball from the running back and runs around the edge.
So if the edge right here decides to follow this running back, Arch is going to take off with the ball. If this end comes off the edge and he stays put, he's making the quarterback stay in the backfield, and you give it to the running back. So it's an option play. You know what an option play is, but this is what we mean with a running quarterback can make this end irrelevant, make him wrong regardless, and that's how you're able to block a defensive end without actually physically blocking a defensive end.
You can also, another way you can cancel out the numbers is you just turn the running back into a lead blocker. You snap the ball, or a receiver. You have him run out and be a receiver, so somebody has to cover him, or you turn him into a fullback, and the quarterback takes the snap, and maybe he pretends or looks to pass, maybe he doesn't, and then he just becomes the running back. And now you have an extra guy.
That'd be fun with a Jarrett Gibson or a Baxter.
Yeah.
Running into leads.
Wisner, just depending on who they have to block.
Well, there's no question if Wisner's down. Wisner will lead block for sure.
Now, this stuff is so potent when you do that. Like the reason Notre Dame went to the national championship game last year, the number one reason is that Riley Leonard was doing this 10 plus times every game that they needed him to. And he was big and strong like Arch, and he was really good at it. And that was just Notre Dame was +1 in the box every week. And they had big tight ends too, but then they would just double down the advantage with both.
You also just make defenses paranoid with this style of play. Like you just make them think a little bit. You also really frustrate edges when you do this. It just adds a whole dynamic that's a pain in the ass for opposing defenses to worry about. And then on top of that, you add Sark's layered schematics and built-in trickeries. And that's just not really – that's a mental overload for opposing defenses.
The trickiest parts of it are, first of all, obviously you're running your quarterback. So you're incurring extra hits. And then Jackson Miles, yes, Quinn was taught by the Texas staff to dive instead of sliding.
Safer.
You can assume safely that this is because the Texas staff reads my Twitter, where I've been arguing for like almost a decade that quarterbacks should dive instead of slide. Because when you slide, you expose your belly and your chin to a late hit. And all it takes is one defender that's like, I don't care if I get thrown out of this game, and you are unconscious. And you're out of the game too. And for a lot of teams, that's a really good trade. If you're diving forward, what are they going to do?
Yeah, they would have to both dive head first, get to the exact same plane right above the ground for any really scary stuff to happen.
When you dive, you control how you get to the ground faster and easier. If you slide, it takes a minute, and then you expose your underbelly. If you dive, you get down whenever you want, and you get down behind the crown of your helmet and your shoulder pads.
You also gain ground. You get more ground.
You gain ground because the ball is here instead of as soon as you begin your slide, you're down. So guys are always sliding short of the marker on accident. Or you slide and it takes the slide a second to count and you're Will Howard and you're like, don't I have a second left? Nope, you don't. You could get hurt diving, but it's way less likely.
Yeah. And I'm glad the coaches have started to make that change. Because remember, like, Dylan Gabriel, when he took that shot, I think it's versus TCU. It's just dive forward, man. It's a way better system. Does this work against Simmons, or is this part of what makes him special?
He's referring to reading them on the option.
Yeah, reading Colin Simmons on an option.
Potentially, it does not work against Simmons. And the reason it doesn't work is that Simmons say Simmons is unblocked and the quarterback's going like this and putting the ball to the running back. Simmons is fast enough
to chase down the running back and then
to split the difference.
Yeah.
Stay square, wait for the quarterback to make his decision, and then chase the actual ball. A lot of guys you don't even want to teach to try to do that because, like, maybe you guess wrong and you get fooled, and then you're running up and then the ball's running behind you. Simmons is just different.
And his insane motor, too. Like, even if you do give it to the running back on counter, he can chase the running back down from behind. My favorite is when the ends blow up the mesh point and tackle both. Like, those plays are what would crack me up whenever the ends just get there so fast.
Yeah, there are at the higher levels of the game, you start to see more guys that can do that. If you go watch, like, the Ravens 49ers Super Bowl, the Harbaugh Bowl, the Ravens would have their guy run at the mesh, just smack Colin Kaepernick on every play.
Yeah.
It seemed like at least that was my memory of it. You can go back and make sure I'm right, but Simmons is different. Most guys, though, if you have the right spacing, then they can't do that.
But you might try to do it to Simmons, right? If he's such a problem, coaches will then go like, well, let's not even try to block him and let's read him. So Simmons will see that kind of stuff. I know in high school they would try that versus Simmons. Let's just read him. Let's not even try to waste a guy blocking him. But he can chase. He has backside pursuit to get the running back. He also has the ability, if he overruns and then sees the quarterback, to pull it to stop, plant, and turn around and go get the quarterback.
He needs to develop in that regard. It's not like he's like a master of doing the thing we said he could do. A lot of the times last year when he would make a play when they would option him, it would be what you're saying, where he would do the wrong thing, but then he was so freaking fast and had such amazing change of direction that he would still just chase the play down anyway from behind.
Yeah.
But that's not plan. So he needs to learn how to play under control a little more against that to fully be just a impossible.
His just natural instincts and stuff are pretty wild, and natural athleticism is wild. But before we keep going, Ian, guess what? Academy Sports and Outdoors is your new home for Jordan. Gear up today and take flight on the court, off the court, and above the court. Unleash your greatness with head-to-toe Jordan gear for the entire family. Available in-store and at academy.com. Elevated styles and shoes for everyone. Unstoppable value every single day. Plus, Academy offers easy ways to shop and save time, like free 1-hour in-store or curbside pickup on academy.com orders. Or choose same-day delivery powered by DoorDash. Order by 4 p.m., get it to your crib by 8 p.m. Check out our full Jordan selection today at Academy Sports and Outdoors. All right. So we know Arch can do this, and we'll run them.
There's a couple more risks on path to running Arch.
Okay, cool.
Two more issues before we move on. The best place to use this stuff is often like short yardage and red zone. Using the quarterback run game, but those are also where like space is tighter and there's the greatest chance of a safety just like knocking the snot out of your quarterback because he's closer. And then the other place where, like, let's say that you build a lead and you're up 28-7 on the Aggies, and it's like the third quarter. And so Sark's like, okay, it's time to just run the ball and go home. But maybe you don't have the tight ends to just run the ball in Texas A&M. So they start loading the box. And you're like, okay, now that means that we use the quarterback run game to run the ball. Well, do you really want to use Arch in the run game for the third and fourth quarter when you're already winning 28-7 to preserve the lead?
It's the correct answer schematically, but probably not the correct answer off the field.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that gets to be tough. Like maybe like Ohio State did that to Notre Dame last year. That was the national championship game. So they ran Will Howard like 17 times or something. And a lot of them were pick up a first down so we can keep the clock going.
The biggest example I ever saw of that was CJ Stroud, I guess, versus Georgia. You know, where it's just like they emptied the tank. Remember that game? They emptied the tank and they ran Stroud a bunch. And it was like in the postseason. It was a few years ago. But I think that was the biggest example of like, hey, who cares? Quarterback run doesn't matter late in the season.
Yeah.
We got to win.
You can't do that every week. Or let's say if your quarterback's already hurt, you don't want to do that. You know?
Yeah.
So it's just not – it's tough. Tom Herman would have that with Sam Ehlinger all the time, where it was like the right thing to do here is we could just run Sam a bunch of times and close this game out. And sometimes they would do it, but you could tell that it was like, it'd be great if we didn't have to do that.
Yeah. And also that's why Sam was always beat to hell. I mean, it costs. And sometimes when you have a super tough quarterback, it costs you even more because they just keep adding to it. So the big conundrum here is it smart to use your play action passer to move the chains? And the answer is only when you need it. and only when you need it in very important situations. But you don't want to just run them to run them. And also the Mannings don't want Arch to be ran just to be ran. Part of the reason why Clemson wasn't super attractive to them was they saw what Dabo was doing with Trevor Lawrence. And they were like, oh, we don't really like that. So that's also the funny part is like, you know, they don't want him to incurring hits over his career that often either. Ian's kids are now on break, guys. And Ian's fighting out there. But he's doing good. He's a good warrior.
I'm outnumbered, outmanned.
I was going to say. His wife's still at work. Ian's having to watch over the kids on summer break.
No, just for they had to do the thing where they make the school staff do like another week or two.
Right.
You know that world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Luckily,
you'll have your partner in crime here shortly, but you've got to survive for a couple weeks, man.
I was just got to hold up in the horn for a little longer till Gandalf can show up on that hill.
Yeah, before you get overrun, dude. All right, path 3, the 4-wide passing game, which to me seems like something we'll be seeing more of.
Oops, Z needed to be on the line there.
Ian, so embarrassing, dude. We can't even show him this diagram. So the 4-wide passing game is going to be really important.
So if the team specifically is playing too high, then the numbers get real easy for the offense. It's like 2 corners play 2 outside receivers. Okay. And then 2 of the linebackers have to cover the 2 of the inside receivers, right? Well, if your 2 inside receivers are both outside away from the formation, the linebackers have to follow them out there.
You put them in situations that are not good for their bodies.
So now let's say the Mike linebacker has to drift out there to cover the Y tight end. And that can cause all kinds of problems. One, can he even cover the tight end in space? Does the Mike linebacker even have that skill set? Two, we now have 5 blockers versus 5 defenders in the box, which is not terrible for the defense, but that's 6 gaps. And in this case, the gap that the Mike linebacker would have to defend would be probably that B gap between the E and the N, the end and the nose. The defense can do different things to try to make him responsible for the outside gap, so it's not as far a journey to get where he needs to be. But you still have problems where the offense can just have an RPO where maybe the Y is going down the lead block on a screen to the far end of the field, and then the running back is running downhill behind like a double team. And then what's the Mike linebacker supposed to do? He cannot defend both. Or you have the Y run a stick route. There's just a million things you can do, and it puts that guy. If you ever wondered or remember that Anthony Hill looked totally lost against Oklahoma. No, not Anthony Hill. Jalen Ford. Jalen Ford, the senior veteran, looked totally lost against Oklahoma in 2023.
Because they were putting him in conflict.
And it's because Oklahoma was doing this all day long and running
Oh yeah, that was the game that everyone was like, I don't know what we love Jalen Ford, but that was just a weird game for him. He had a bad game. It's like he couldn't be correct.
Yeah, people were like, he looked frozen. He just looked frozen. And it's like, yeah. Well, he had to do 2 things at the same time on 2 other opposite ends of the field.
Yeah.
He couldn't, didn't have the Loki power to send a hologram into the gap. So, and the Oklahoma was running like quarterback draw for Dylan Gabriel. It was tough. That was a tough game.
Well, here you have, like you said, you have 5 blockers, 5 guys. We like this. Running back has the advantage, and then if you add a quarterback run on top of that, then you have really good numbers advantage in the run game in the box.
Yep. Now you're cooking with gas. Also, you can just like Washington did this. A lot of teams did this to Texas in 2023 because Texas wanted to live in 2 high coverage in 2023. So teams would just do this. They'd flex the tight end out, or they'd replace him with another slot receiver, and then they would just haunt Texas's linebackers in space over and over and over again. You need the good inside receivers. You need the quick decision-making quarterback. You can't be awful in pass protection, but Kansas State did this. Houston did this. We were a little bit worried about it. And then they played good teams like Washington did this, and they got cooked.
Yeah.
So this is like the ultimate solution. This is whenever I write spread 501, this is going to be one of the underpinnings of spread 501, which is eventually it just turns into hunting matchups in space in the passing game.
But the good part too is you say that we think injuries is going to have the ability to test these Mike linebackers when they do bring them out here.
Yeah, injuries is really good at like little stick routes where he just kind of runs into open space and turns around. He can do more than that too, but he's really good at just that, which is very good at just like holding that linebacker out there. Texas has all the personnel to do this. It's just a matter of if Manning can be a good, quick, reliable decision maker and whether or not Sark invests enough time into this as a solution. Because to execute this style, you need versatility and experience at like quarterback, running back, and tight end. And you need really good, consistent protection. And you need to rep it a lot. It can't be like, as we'll get into in my next article that I released this morning, Sark has really only done this style where you just like move the tight end all over the place and throw the ball around. The only times we've ever seen Sark use this style at Texas were when he had months to prepare against like Alabama or Michigan, or if it was like a 2-minute drill. It was like, you have to do, this is the only way to get the ball down the field in 2 minutes or less.
So it's not a preference. It's not a preference of Sark to play this style, but
has been.
But yeah, but the raw ingredients might require to take a look at this. And I think
and if they could, it gives you a solution. If the other team's playing too high and they're just really tough to run the ball against, you do this and you can take them apart. And I don't know if I've ever seen a defense. I've seen one defense ever that was really good at stopping this.
Who?
The national championship Wolverines shut Washington down trying to do this. I don't think I've seen that happen in the playoffs against a really good team at doing this. I think that's the only time I've ever seen that happen. Are you trying to think of counter examples?
No, I'm trying to think back to the Michigan game about the formationally. I know Michigan shut them down. I was just trying to think of that stuff. I don't have counter examples. This style is a pain in the ass. Like, I don't like this style is what was killing Texas, especially when you have a running quarterback, right? Because you have the quarterback draws there. You have the normal run game advantage. You have option like RPO optionality. You have running optionality. You have all the basics of all your spread concepts because you have 4 wide out there. As long as you have a running back that can block.
You know who else is good at this is Clemson.
I was going to say.
That's why I was chicken little before the Clemson game, because I was like, guys, I don't know if Texas is going to be able to shut. I don't know if we're going to see the defense we've been seeing. I think Clemson might take it to Texas's defense. And then I was worried because Clemson had like big run stopping personnel. That ended up, the sky stayed intact in that regard. Yeah. Texas ran over Clemson. But and everybody that was in that stadium will admit, I think, that there were times where everybody on the Texas side was terrified of what Clemson was showing that they could do to Texas's defense.
Yeah, and
it was all the same principles.
And and a creating quarterback like Cade too. So this formation is freaky, but just this style of play is not a lot of fun to deal with, and we've seen it just cause a lot of problems for Texas, but also just cause problems with everyone.
Yeah,
Ian will not allow this. Still better that we didn't play Michigan that year. I felt we matched up well. Ian just is like no. Do you think we Here's the thing. I liked our that was Trevondre Sweat year, right?
Yeah.
So I liked our odds, man. Our defense versus their offense. Now it's totally flipped, right? Our offense versus their defense is where all the fright gave me. But I was like, I liked the matchup on our defensive side.
Michigan would have outscored Texas with just their defense, guys.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that they score 14 points from like interceptions.
Like theoretically, Texas was like, because Michigan was so run centric. So it's like, if you were going to pick a defense to try to stop this team, you were going to pick the Texas team.
Yeah.
The problem is there's a lot of problems. One of the problems is that if you're trying to pick the ideal team to beat that Michigan team, you weren't doing it based on who could stop their offense. You're trying to pick who can have a chance to score on their defense. And then also Michigan would have just like extended the surface with tight ends and extra linemen and just run the ball at somebody besides Sweat and Murphy.
Yeah. Yeah. They would have ended up with the 8 blockers and just they would have had 9 gaps.
Yeah. They would have done stuff with McCarthy. They would have done whatever it took to score the 17 to 24 points they needed.
Yeah.
And then their defense was going to just obliterate Texas.
And our secondary that year wasn't great. Now, if you took our front, like last year's secondary with that year's front, man, that would have been a sick team. Keep calling Simmons, though.
Yeah, I like that team has a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would that 2022 Georgia team do versus the 2023 Michigan team? I was gonna say, this is kind of stuff that Ian thinks about like before bed.
I should think about that before. It'd be a better routine. That was a good Georgia offense. They would have had trouble for sure.
That's Stetson Bennett final year.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, but the Georgia defense was very good. That's tough. That's the matchup that we wanted. Michigan's changed all their offseason stuff before 2023, and it became a little less Ohio State focused, and they started doing like beat Georgia drills. They started like renaming drills like beat Georgia, and that was the bar. Was like, can we be physical and nasty enough to beat that Georgia team that keeps winning the championship? And then Georgia missed the playoffs, so it was a moot point. And they still whipped Ohio State. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I think that's a really tough game. I maybe lean McCarthy over Bennett. Maybe that'd be the tiebreaker. I don't know, though. I don't know.
I'm sure Ian in 3 days will have a piece on that.
In 3 days, I'll be absolutely sure I know the answer.
I was going to say, you'll see a Substack piece here shortly. Before we keep going, guys, let's hear a word from David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor, and I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach, and he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
Before we go to Arch's drive that we liked, this style, even though it's a really good style and probably works with our personnel, we're probably a year out from being able to fully embrace this approach, right?
Maybe. That's where I was leaning.
I was going to say, I'm quoting you.
Yeah. When I wrote this, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Then I was revisiting a drive against Mississippi State. I was actually pulling clips for me and Elsie are going to do a show coming up on one of these weekends on 11 versus 12 personnel and just the differences and how Sark uses them and stuff like that. And I was pulling clips. I saw Arch doing some stuff from 11 and 12 where I was like, that looks pretty good. Like maybe they could do this a little more than I thought. So.
Hell of a segue, Ian. Let's look at that drive. So that's a Mississippi State drive. They get the ball right under 2 minutes going into half. I believe it's a tied score. Do you want to look at your article or do you want to go straight into the tape?
Just get the tape.
All right. Let's pull up the tape then, guys. Let's do it.
The article was supposed to serve to create tape for this, and then you just pulled it from all 22.
Cool.
Which is better. So
let's do it. The fun world of screen sharing, everybody. Okay. Let's pull this up. All righty. It is 1:56 left in the half. The score is 6-7. It is 1st and 10. The ball is on Texas 25. So we have a perfect situation here for a 2-minute drill. This is what coaches love to be able to rep. And we're going to see what Arch does here on 1st and 10, beginning the drive of a 2-minute drill. All righty. So what formation are we in here?
This is 11 personnel, but it is a 4-wide set. Mm-hmm. And the trick with this style is that your tight end becomes almost like the tell. He's always everywhere he is, the defense has to adjust to it. Because when you start spreading your formations and moving the tight end around, it starts creating distortions in the defensive structure. Defenses' positions and their rules are all based on If I'm in this area of the field, I can expect to defend X, Y, and Z and player types A, B, and C. But when the 250-pound tight end goes out into space, then it starts to bend things around.
And you also have Sarkisian playing with the defense to see if they can handle a formation into the boundary. Okay, so putting more players to the short side of the field. Sark's also testing them here by putting the running back to their right. This is a quad structure. So what he's saying is, look, I have 3 blockers here versus I think you're like Stone, Blanton right here. So you have 3-on-3. All I'm going to do here is a quads thing. I can bring this running back out, throw him the screen, and then I have 3 blockers. So they're also showing defensively they don't really have an answer, or they're not choosing to use their answer to a quads threat when you go for formation into the boundary.
Great. Now they're going to run an RPO. This is a now screen, or I think some people call it a flash screen. It's basically like a bubble screen, only it's the outside receiver who catches it instead of the inside receiver. They got that to the boundary. It's actually a zone. Is it a zone read play?
Let's see. Not really.
Not really, no.
Yeah.
It's an outside zone play to the wide side of the field. And Arch reads the middle linebacker, who's the linebacker on the hash mark. And it's like, does he get where he needs to be to stop the wide zone, or does he linger to stop the screen? And then that's what guides the quarterback's decision. He decides the linebacker is not getting on his horse to defend the outside zone as quickly as he needs to, so he hands off. And he goes pretty well. Would have gone a lot better if Cole Hudson hadn't whiffed on that guy.
You also just don't have the numbers anymore on this RPO. I mean, you have one-on-one if he can make a miss, but you don't have the blocking advantage technically there.
Outside zone is a little less conducive to this than something that's like more downhill and quick hitting, like inside zone. But it worked out. It worked out pretty good still.
So this is play 1 of the drive.
This is play 1 of the drive. Just an RPO. Nice little game.
Jaden Blue gets tackled right here. Do you need to see the end zone copy of this one?
No.
Okay. Now we're going to go look at play 2 of the drive. 1 minute and 37 seconds left in the half. It is 2nd and 6. Ball is still on the Texas 29, so still a long way to go here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nub trips formation, which means the tight end is lined up like a normal tight end. He's the guy in the very top to the short side. And then the receiver that's normally in the boundary goes to the field. So all 3 receivers to the wide side of the field, and then tight end in the boundary. And then they're basically going to run like an inversion of the exact same thing they just ran. They're going to run. It's a different run. It's a sweep play, but they're going to run to the short side instead of throwing. And they're going to throw to the wide side instead of running. And then again, Arch's decision-making is going to be, first, can they defend our quick hitter into space? And if they don't, if their linebacker does not react to my bubble screen, I throw the bubble screen. The linebacker kind of stays out there in space a little bit, but he doesn't commit to either, so he throws the screen. But then Isaiah Bond whiffs on this cornerback.
So this is one of, like, if I had to give one big gripe to Sark, I hate Isaiah Bond lead blocking. I hate Xavier Worthy lead blocking. Like, I do not do this. I hate this speed guy ever being a lead blocker. And because it just happens like this. And this play is scary because there's potential Ringo gets hurt right there. But that's what I like about not having the crazy speedster on this one this year, is that everybody can block and everyone has the size to block. But that would drive me nuts when our little speed guy would be lead blockers, because it's just a wasted play 90% of the time.
This one I think is more about want to and discipline than it is size, because he just like doesn't get in position to block him.
Yeah, he's going through the motions crazy right here.
It doesn't even get. He's probably like he's probably thinking right before the snap, like, okay, who am I blocking again? You know?
Yeah, and he's also like hoping that Wingo's leverage is to the outside here, so he can just like turn and whatever. But clearly, Wingo's leverage is not to the outside, and he sends him right to him. Bang! But I remember that play live, and I was like, "Oh man, Wingo, don't be hurt." But we're seeing Sark using a lot of these kind of tripsy stuff. It's not 4 wide, but you're still getting trips out to the field here and getting some space and that kind of stuff. So, boom, he flips it out. Same thing on the RPO. Play doesn't go well because Isaiah Bond doesn't block.
But for our purposes, now it's 3rd and long.
Right. So now it's 3rd and 8, and we're on our 27. We have 1:13 left to go.
So now if you're Sark, you probably want to throw. Does Nub trips again.
Mm-hmm. So tied into the short side of the field, trips to the wide side.
Yep. Darth Mullen loves this formation.
I know a lot of people that love trips Nub.
I'd love to see Darth Mullen. Oh, wait, he is in college now. Isn't he coaching like Nevada or something?
UNLV?
Yeah, I think so.
Somewhere out there.
He's great. He's one of the better. His understanding of the geometry of spread offense is at the top with like the very best offensive coaches. He creates angles and space so well. Okay. Another advantage here is that you put all 3 receivers to one side, and then your tight end and your running back to the other. And so then the defense has to make a choice. It's like, do we also overload the wide side of the field with all our best coverage guys? Or do we keep good coverage guys in the boundary where they normally would be, even though they're covering a tight end and a running back and not a receiver?
And the answer was Sark is, yeah, you're going to want to pay attention to that tight end and running back.
Especially when it's Gunnar Helm and Jaden Blue.
Correct.
I don't know if Texas can mimic that next year.
Yeah, probably.
Just a running back. I mean, Weisner is a good receiver, but Jaden Blue was a game changer.
Yeah.
If he sticks in the NFL because of this, it's definitely not going to be because of his running, right?
Yeah. So here we go. We allow them to waste their resources over here. Really, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the structure here. If someone goes inside, you really have 5. You have this single high safety that's also cheating that way. So you have Helm and Blue down here versus these 2 bodies. And Sark exploits it. So they run a route with Helm deeper here to try to pull this part of the defense and to catch their eyes. And it works great. 10 turns, 3 here turns. They're all obsessed with Helm. And that leaves Arch able to zero in really quick on Blue here. Ball to Blue. Now it's still short of the line to gain, but Blues can turn around and get 3 yards. He's quick enough to do that.
And he does.
Blue catches it, gets the first down for us. So a good grab on 3rd down when you got to have it here.
For people that can remember, this strategy of attacking in the boundary because you can find weaker pass defenders in the boundary, Texas got totally plagued by this in 2023, especially when they had Anthony Hill as the weak side linebacker and they were playing too high. Teams would put their slot in the boundary all the time, so Anthony Hill would have to go cover him.
Yeah, and that's just a horrible matchup for any linebacker.
And then Tom Herman did this all day, every day. He would put Lil Jordan Humphrey or Devin Duvernay when he moved to the slot the following year. He would put them in the boundary all the time. And then sometimes he would put like Andrew back to the far side of the field and maybe the running back too, and just make you waste defenders covering guys he was never going to throw to out in space, and then just hunt his best receiver in the short side slot. It's very hard to. LSU did this in 2019. It's a very effective strategy.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know why more teams don't do it, honestly.
But if we can get, man, like this play is all about respect of Helm. Like it's like they're keyed in here. there's some awareness that he's behind the line, but if you can have a tight end that commands that respect, they think he's going to get it. I mean, it's Helm's the reason why Blue makes this play.
This is why Arch's uncles were all about using the tight end to key where to throw the ball. This style is all about having a tight end that tells you where to throw the ball based on how the defense plays him when you move him around. And ever since Texas signed Arch, I was like, they have to make sure they have a good receiving tight end on the roster and whenever he's like the starter.
Yeah.
And so like when who was the last one? Amari Niblack, when he transferred out, I was kind of like, oh no.
Yeah.
I hope y'all really like Jordan Washington.
Amari was just farther along.
Yeah. Jack injuries saves the day.
Yeah, it's a huge ad. Okay. So now we are at, let's see what it goes here. I don't know why this goes to 3rd and 8. I think this is incorrect, right?
Oh, it just flipped. The last second it flipped to 1st and 10.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, so then we're at 1st and 10, 1 minute left, still 6-7. Our ball is on the Texas 37. Let's continue our drive with Arch Manning here.
Now it's 2-by-2 with the tight end again flexed out into the boundary.
And this is 4 wide.
Yep. And they're going to use the tight end for a whip dig combo, which means the tight end runs up at the linebacker, turns around, and then rolls out. And so his goal is to get the linebacker to stick to him and then follow him out. And then as the linebacker goes out, that should open up a window to throw the dig to the receiver behind. Isaiah Bond.
And so you'll see this stick variation a ton with tight ends. So they're taught to go get their guy here, and then they'll whip out.
Texas would do this with David Thomas and Vince Young all the time and get like Billy Pittman running wide open down the field. The spacing. Go ahead.
I would say you see this in the NFL a ton, this route specifically from the tight end here.
The spacing on this sucks because Isaiah Bond is too far inside, and so the window is so fast. And that linebacker is kind of like you don't really want to throw that because the linebacker's right there sitting on it to Bond.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be able to happen, but their spacing is not good. I don't know if that's on Sark, if they didn't line up properly or what.
Or they're not used to running it to the boundary, But yeah, their spacing's off here because right here, I mean, in the NFL, you're throwing this, but you'll see that Arch is able to improvise here. Arch looks elsewhere too, right here.
It's not really a window to throw because right here is where you see that the linebacker's committed, but that means you have to start your throw there. You can't throw before you know the linebacker's not going to,
do anything. Yeah, you're right. So Arch looks in a different direction right here. He realizes like not good. So he turns his head right here. He's looking to this side of the field. He's trying to see if someone's working in right here, which they are, but this is what Arch is going to be able to do. And remember last week when I was telling you, like Ian, like with this play style of a creating quarterback, your receivers have to understand it too, that the play's not dead.
Yep.
So Bond goes here. Bond realizes his spacing's crap. Arch comes back to him. Then Bond reworks out of it and makes the catch. But that's what the play's not dead here. And our players have to be really aware of that with Arch to turn it into backyard football if need be. And you can see it, I think, better from this end zone angle.
Yeah, he's basically going to look. I think it's linebacker 44. That's the problem. And he's going to look him over to the field and then come back and then step up and throw on the move and come back. And now it's going to be open. So you definitely don't want to throw that.
Right there. Yeah.
Like you probably could have squeezed that in.
Yeah, why risk it? Especially on like a 2-minute drill where you're trying to get like real reps and make good decisions, right?
Yeah.
So then he looks back to the field, seeing if there's an end breaker, doesn't like the end breaker. And he also part of this could be he's working the linebacker. And he is to a certain degree, right? He's influencing the linebacker there. Then Bond, watch this step up, man. That's what I love. Bond works back, and it's that weird. I can't remember if it even counts as a catch. If it does, blah, blah, blah. But that's an important part of Arch too, right? Like the route didn't work initially, but he looked to the other side of the field, influenced the linebacker, and then came back and tried to make it work.
A lot of this stuff, you really need the quarterback to be good at improv because you don't have a lot of protection and it's college guys. And so mistakes happen. And then you need to be able to either need to be able to avoid disaster or make something positive happen.
Yeah. That's what's going to be important with Arch. Last year with Texas, if the designed play was not there, we weren't getting anything positive. That's the difference with Arch this year. He can salvage. So now we're in 1st and 10. So Bond did get the catch there. The ball's on the 50. We have 49 seconds to go, and we're looking to score. Guess what, Ian?
Same formation.
Yep, same formation, 4 wide. Michigan getting, or not Michigan, I wish. Mississippi State, slow to the ball, not even really lined up.
Yeah, the nickel's trying to get out there late.
Yeah. And this is a quick out to Helm.
Yep.
Bang. So this is what you want to see in 2-minute drill. To me, when I think of 2-minute drill, I just see this play like echoing over and over again. So just the quick outs, man, the super frustrating stuff. Remember when Texas would lose these like close games and they would run drives on us? It just felt like it was all kind of quick outs. I don't know how that works with the new clock rules, though. It does below 2 minutes. It does stop the clock, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah,
Well, first downs were what didn't stop the clock anymore. So
okay.
he got out of bounds here, so it would have stopped anyway.
Okay, cool.
But the decision making for Arch, as soon as he sees the corner turn his hips to run with the receiver in man, that's the cue that the out is open, throw now. So he's already made the decision and is throwing. And that's how you hit those quick windows on these. Is you have to read a defender's leverage and make a decision like that. And then throw your accurate ball.
But man, that's quarterbacking. Like that's what the NFL wants to see. It's these quick, confident decision makings, anticipations. It's not sexy. The route combination is not groundbreaking. Move the ball forward, quick outs, read the defense correctly, move the offense forward in 2-minute drill. Like that's what it's about. I remember listening to a Peyton Manning interview, and they asked him what a quarterback's main job was, and he said convert on 3rd downs. And like that was always like with exactly this style. And I thought that was the best like simplicity to just a single word for a quarterback. And it doesn't have to be a 3rd down, but these are the kind of plays where you convert. They're not sexy, but they mean everything. 2nd and 6 now, 45 seconds. Will Texas be able to score? I bet you guys knows the answer, but all right. So we got trips again, tight end, not nub because he's not part of the formation, but
this Y ISO.
Yep. So you got Gunnar Helm to the short side of the field, to the boundary here. And then this is often where you would put your boundary receiver, right? Your X receiver, your 6'3" Thor-looking guy. And that's because whenever you do trips, you're forcing a man structure. We're seeing a single high structure, meaning that your backside, whoever it is, receiver normally gets manned up. And that's why you put your strongest, biggest receiver there who can win contested stuff. But we're doing that with Gunnar Helm in this situation. That's pretty interesting. And then our more speed options are the ones that are to the field in the trips to the top of your screen. And like we said, we're getting a really what you think we're getting cover 3-ish looking how they're playing off. But here we go.
Or a blitz.
But also, if you're cover 3, right, like Gunnar Helm is here. This guy's playing this much off. We only have 6 yards to go. I mean, like, to me, you're also getting an easy sit-down route to convert, too. We'll see what happens.
Or you run it off and you have your running back do that again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we know how much they respect Gunnar Helm's game, too.
So they are in 0 coverage. Or, let's see here, 1, 2. Yeah, they're in like 0. And they put 0 rat something. Or maybe somebody on defense made a mistake. If you look to the wide side of the field,
they're playing cover 3 on the wide side of the field.
they are outnumbered. The out is wide open. The shallow is wide open. Everything except the deep route is wide open. But Texas lined up that way because they wanted to attack in the boundary again.
Yeah, you have every route here. Like you have Bond here, you have whatever at the sticks works.
But Arch is keyed in on the boundary, so we missed that opportunity. They blitz, they bail the linebacker out on blue. Arch sees that, and so he's like, okay, I'm going to, they probably told this guy that tries to close on the wheel, just read his eyes. You can leave guys open, just read his eyes, and you'll be able to get a break on the ball.
Well, also, I think we're giving away this route. I think the back is chowed. So we'll see it from the end zone angle. But anytime the back is sitting out here at tackle depth or a little bit further, it's clear that they're going out for a route. Cheated out wide is chowed for the fans. So I also think there's just a giveaway here, too, that we know that route's coming. We'll see on the end zone. But you also see this linebacker goes right up the middle, dude. And does Arch change his feet? Does he panic? Let's see. Feet are stable? Nope. Nothing changes with his feet here.
Misses the throw, though.
Misses the throw. But
it's probably a touchdown.
Yeah. But there's no panic here. Like the feet don't move. His base stays here. Look at that release. Super quick. And then he gets turned a little bit to protect himself. So that's important too. The reason Arch missed this throw is not because he started fading away or trying to throw a jumper, right?
He's off his back foot a little bit.
Okay, so this is what I mean by the running back is giving away his route. So anytime, heads up fans, anytime you see running backs out as wide as a tackle or wider than a tackle, they're going out on a route. Who did I learn that from? Not Quandre Diggs. Oh, man, a DB that played with Diggs in the NFL. And he had a YouTube channel, and he was teaching from the DB's perspective. And he was talking about we can always read when the running back's going to go out because they're always a chowed back. Lover. Something like that. But that's how they know that Blue is going out for a route and how the fans will know, too, going forward. 44.
Another nugget here is that Texas set their protection to pick up the wide blitzer, and then he bailed in coverage, and the linebacker came instead, and nobody's blocking the linebacker.
Yeah.
They had set it to block the other linebacker. This is what you call a simulated blitz, where you show pressure from one side to get the protection you want, and then you bring the blitz from the spot that you know is now vacant.
And you see wasted resources, right? Because you're going to see as soon as he follows out with the back, and it could have likely been on if the back didn't leave the backfield. But you'll see Cam Williams now here, totally with nothing to work on. Now you have Hudson keyed in on 23. Jake's over here fighting with number 8, and no one even thinks to pick up 44. So the worst thing ever right there is letting a free runner come right through the A gap, which is a quarterback's nightmare. But Arch doesn't, like I said, Arch handles it really well.
Sort
of. But what I'm talking about with his feet.
Miss the throw.
Yeah. Yeah, you can miss the throw, but you're looking for things too where it's like, is he scared?
It's a good decision. It's like, if I hang in here, I can score a touchdown.
Yeah.
And he just didn't. But the decision was
right.
If he hits that, I guarantee you, some Aaron Murray would have one more thing to contend with. That would have been a huge play. But he'll make up for it in a minute.
Yeah. He'll show us again he's not scared. 41 seconds left. Still 6-7. Can we score in the 2-minute drill? 3rd down, 6 to go. Guess what? 4 wide to start. We motion Helm in to that Gravedigger H-back look. So they're seeing something they like here. They're checking. What's pretty annoying about checks in college is I would say it's like a 95% run. After that, as soon as they check, it's almost always a run.
Don't mean it doesn't work.
So they go here, they check, I mean, 95% when I say a check. And then also when the back moves, but the formation changes, none. So here we go. And look, they're seeing 3 guys down, right? Like this is, don't pass into this structure. So they're right. The check is 100% correct. You need to run into this style of structure because they only have 5 guys in the box right here, 5 guys in the box. We have 5 offensive linemen and Gunnar Helm. We have 6 blockers against 5. You're absolutely going to run into this.
Watch the right guard, Cole Hudson, all the way through to the end of the play. Oops.
Yeah, he gets Olayed. Now he has pretty good mobility. Like I liked the movement climbing to that level, but just nothing. Woo-woo.
They called this a hold.
No, dude, they don't.
Yeah.
No, dude, Texas doesn't hold. So
it's tough because it didn't even. I don't know if it even impacted the play. But they called it a hold and made it 3rd and 9 because it was from the spot for the foul, which was advanced downfield.
So there goes the check, and then the back moves and nothing else moves. I wonder what's going to happen against the 3-man front. We run. It's a correct play call. 7 just shoots that gap right there. Is 7 Stone Blanton?
I think so. If he's the guy you've heard of, he's probably the guy that has the single-digit jersey.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's also that name, baby. Like that name's incredible. So he shoots the gap on Cole Hudson there and gets it. All right.
It's kind of a tough penalty in my opinion because he didn't really even stop him, and he still made the tackle. I don't know.
So Mississippi State are patting themselves on the back because they're doing good coordination here, right? They got Texas a 3rd and 10 on their own 50 with 36 seconds left. Mississippi State right now is winning the 2-minute battle and frustrating Sarkisian's offense situationally, which I like there, right? They basically force Sark into this 3rd down because they go like, look, you're not throwing this. So it's like, you're going to have to run it. And then they send everyone and trigger him down. So Sark makes the correct play call, but Mississippi State is what dictated this run and dictated that Sark would be in 3rd and 10. It realistically, if the run did better, but it would still be 3rd and 7. So 3rd and 10, ball on
the first down. The holding penalty wiped out a first down.
Yeah. That seems like a big metric too. Here we go. So we have trips, Gunnar Helm.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm. Gunnar Helm is normally where you would put like a receiver you can't reach trying to burn a corner.
Yep.
So right here, they're putting Gunnar Helm and taking away one of Mississippi State's best, or taking away Mississippi State's field corner, right? That's the goal.
Yeah, depending on how Mississippi State reacts.
And then I think you have Bond to the boundary here. Is that Bond?
Yeah.
So then you get Bond. This formation sucks for a defense. All right. So then you have Bond on the boundary, 1-on-1, who has the speed to beat anyone 1-on-1. So that's threatening. And then you have Gunnar Helm out here at the top of the screen at your widest, trying to burn their best coverage defender in space. And burn, I mean cancel
wasting
out.
him. Yeah, wasting him.
Yeah, burn is like, you're burning him off. You're not. It's not a speed thing. You're just wasting him schematically.
Yep. And then it's more Golden, and then so also who they match up on Helm tells you their coverage. Is it the field corner or is it somebody else? If it's anybody besides the field corner, you have a pretty good chance now of knowing that they're just in man coverage.
Correct. And then they're also motioning out the back here too,
which does the same thing.
Correct. So they're giving a bunch of keys right here as well. So they're trying to see who's on who.
Yep. And so then Arch takes a second. And then also, if it's man coverage, chance of a blitz. Even without them sneaking up on the line, which is like absolutely we're blitzing. So
and you're also seeing, and two for the fans, make sure to look at the DB's eyes. They're really locked into their guys. He's not paying any attention to the quarterback. He's not paying attention to the quarterback. He's kind of peeking inside. He's cheating a little bit, but he's still focused on this. And then this guy's not even, his back is to the field because he wants to force an outside release here from Gunnar Helm, so the sideline can be an extra defender. And they're also on pretty much the same plane here too. Heard it described as birds on a wire. So you end up with kind of a zero look here, and then they can bring guys. But all this stuff is screaming man. Who's on Gunnar Helm? The motion out to draw the linebacker out with him, how the DBs are looking at the receivers, not paying attention to the quarterback, and the fact that all the DBs are on the same plane. This is all man stuff. As well as guys walked up on the line. So but whenever you do this, right, this is empty. You only have 5 pass blockers.
And there are 6 pass rushers.
Yep.
So somebody comes unblocked.
Somebody's going to come unblocked, and it can't be A or B gap.
Yep. Which Texas gets that right.
Yeah. So you know that one of these edges are going to be the guy that comes free. And it's Stone Blanton here that comes free.
If you're Arch, you know exactly what you're getting, and you're just picking your guy and letting it fly.
Boom. And taking the shot to the ribs. And we talked this play last week, so I won't go a ton into it. But he knows he's getting a free guy. He knows he has to throw it. Right now, Arch Manning's throwing the football, guys. Where's the ball going? I mean, that anticipation is crazy. You know?
Thanks.
Yeah. But it's like the ball is left Arch's hands, and this is where the receivers are.
Yep.
Boom. And then the ball is caught finally here. Okay. Arch Manning, ball leaves his hand. Ball is caught here. So that placement is pretty wild, man. And that anticipation, that's an excellent spot throw. And it's also really good on Moore, man. Like Moore's tracking here. He knows where to get it. He keeps his eye on. He looks it in the whole way. It's a sick play. And then we know Manning takes a shot here from Stone Blanton to the ribs. Once again, he doesn't cheat his feet. He doesn't show any fear. He knows he's getting hit, and he takes it.
Should do another video sometime where we break down the resulting touchdown dances that occurred, both from Arch and from DeAndre Moore.
Was that the fake injury from? Yeah. I hated that trend, dude. That was my least favorite trend.
That was awesome.
It was between the don't want to get demonetized, but the firearm stuff, and then also the dead, like pulling my hamstring. It was not a year of great celebrations. But
I love Texas's John Wick firearm dance they had in 2023.
Yeah. But this Arch in the 2-minute drill, Mississippi State did an all right job. I mean, we're at the 50. You know, it's like we didn't gain a ton of ground fast, but that's kind of what's frustrating about Arch Manning. And also, too, the fun part is here we have Mississippi State saying we're keeping everything in front of us. You guys have to run the ball. And Sark's like, I don't like that. Let's find a way to get them in, force them into man. Now we have the look that we want. The answer probably is just like, don't play a ton of man versus Arch. Like Ian said, maybe you play 2 high, 3 high versus Arch, and then it can unlock some other things. Cool, brother. Just another day at the Arch Manning office, dude.
So this is stuff, if they can do this frequently against great teams, they can win the national championship. That's the story. If they can't,
they won't.
Maybe they can win the national championship, but
yeah,
they for sure can if they can do this stuff against great defenses and not just Mississippi State. Because this is the hardest stuff to defend. It's the most explosive. It's the most like you're just always in a game if you can do a couple of these drives and score 2 touchdowns in 4 minutes at the end of a game.
And luckily you have Sark, right, who's really good at getting defenses forcing looks. Yeah. And if you force looks like that, like how Sark forced the man, you saw Arch was able to anticipate and throw it.
It's interesting. He's so good at this spread stuff, just not Sark's bread and butter. But we just haven't seen it. to date at Texas. It just hasn't been the bread and butter.
Yeah. But it could be. Splendidetti says, you think Sark will have an insane script dialed up for arch reminiscent of Quinn's first game against Bama? Yeah, for sure.
Probably. Depends on how well he can anticipate the Pencil's defensive game plan.
Yeah.
That could be a confounding variable, as if the Pencil just has something brilliant cooked up for Ohio State's defense. But even then, honestly, this stuff, you force the defense to tell on themselves when you're in 4 wide with the tight end moving all over the place.
Correct. Like there was what, 4 or 5 different man indicators from that play. Like, I mean, that's like if I was teaching someone how to identify man, it would probably be that play. All right, Justin Wells, we'll get to this. Ian, off-topic question. Eric has had concerns in the past about off-ball linebackers who rush off the edge in high school. Do you have that concern with Xavier Griffin after yesterday's notebook? Have you been able to see Griffin's stuff?
Yeah, I wrote about him in the notebook.
Okay, that was you. Broke it down with Justin?
Yeah, me and anonymous coach.
Okay.
I always have this concern with Eric. Me and Eric have been watching this for a long time, where we'll be excited about a off-ball, aggressive blitzing linebacker, and then he gets to Texas and it's like, oh, he doesn't know how to play linebacker. And it either takes forever for them to learn, or like Harold Perkins, anyone? Malik Jefferson? Either takes them forever to learn or they just never learn. I am less concerned because this staff is better at developing linebackers than previous staffs. And also there's time to develop them. You don't need them to play as freshmen or sophomores these days at Texas, because you got guys like Ty Anthony Smith, right? Ty Anthony Smith has taken to this he's actually sort of a different type that we've had to watch be a hit or miss, the safety turns into linebacker type. He keeps showing promise, but he won't even have to prove it until he's a junior or senior. That's how you make linebacker work.
What do you think about Hill's high school tape in that regard? I mean, he wasn't a ton off the edge, but it was like pass rush crazy.
I was not as high on Hill as I should have been in retrospect. But
was it because of that?
Well, he played inside linebacker for 3 years at Denton Ryan.
Right, but if you like watch his huddle, it's like it was crazy amounts of pass rush blitz style stuff.
No, I watched whole games of him because
Okay.
I was really curious. And he played a lot of true inside linebacker. So I was like, that's good. He's getting a gazillion reps at this really difficult thing. But they kept him in the box and they protected him in a lot of ways too. With the other guy that ended up going to Texas and then I think transferring out as a corner just on islands.
Austin Jordan.
But that was good. Like if you look at the top schools in Texas, usually the guys that play inside linebacker are guys that are not going to play. The guys that are going to play inside linebacker in college don't play inside linebacker in high school.
It's true.
Because it's starting to change a little bit, I think, with evolution in tactics. But this has been a real hard problem for Texas to solve for years. But it's starting to resolve.
Any comment on Elko's latest comments? Did you see that?
Yeah, this is where he said we went toe to toe with Texas, and he didn't even name Texas explicitly.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of thing you want to hear from a coach if you're worried about if he's got the backing he needs from the administration and the donors. When they just start making like kind of whiny excuses. Toe to toe is generous.
Also, I just don't want to hear things from my coach that isn't based in reality. You know, it's like that. There was no toe to toe going on. Like if it was toe to toe, that's fine, but it wasn't toe to toe. And then his post game was like Texas physically dominated us or whatever in the post game. So it's also that where it's just like it's not a reality. He's like making the game look better in his head as time goes on.
That just whenever you see that means like they're trying to push back against it. It's just not a good place to be. I think A&M could be like a dark horse team this year, but only if he has buy-in in his locker room to get that defense to play like at least like his Duke defense. A&M embarrassed themselves against Texas on defense last year. So,
well, I thought Elko was going to be much more the no-nonsense, reality-based coach, and that's why I thought he would do better. But once you start making statements like that, I'm like, there's firing up your base, but there's also just like, dude, you have to be honest with yourself and your team where you're at. Like that gains the respect. Lying about going toe-to-toe with Texas, I mean, you would have been shut out if it wasn't for Quinn doing weird stuff in the red zone, like towards the end. Like that was a game that they wouldn't even have had a point. We kind of like self-sacrificed oddly at the end. So that's the part too that I would be kind of like, Elko, I thought you were different than that. I thought you were different, dude.
Reminds me of when Bob Stoops beat Saban in a non-playoff BCS bowl, and Trevor Knight had the night of his life. And he just that was his excuse for the next 4 years. Whenever Oklahoma didn't win a big game, he's like, "Well, I seem to recall we beat Alabama."
Yeah.
I don't know why people are saying that. We won a Sugar Bowl championship.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, for every time you go back to that everything gets worse.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a weird quote. It's not what happened in reality. Everybody watched that game. If you want to act like the score was closer, we know why the score was closer. We shot ourselves in the foot. Really wasn't much to do with A&M doing that either. So I was
they were good plays.
They were good plays, man, but many other quarterbacks don't do that in the red zone. Just strip fump. You get what I'm saying?
He was also injured playing on a high ankle sprain and a still healing oblique.
Yeah, but still running where it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, bad decisions, but I'm just saying most good defensive plays involve some bad decision making somewhere by the offense.
I'm down. He was banged up.
Yep.
I know. Every game, guys. The eternal Quinn excuse. All right, guys. Appreciate hanging out with you, chat. Talking football, actual schemes. Ian, thank you as well. Joe is in Destin, Florida. He's just hanging out, just on the beach, maxing, relaxing. But he's actually covering SEC spring meetings. So tomorrow, I think I will be hosting again on Thursday, covering for Joe. So me and Ian will run it back. And then we'll always have the entertaining Justin Wells by our side as well. Chat, thanks for hanging out.
It's me, you, and Justin tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
Oh, snap.
Y'all better tune in for that.
Yep. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out. Ian, thank you. And this was IT Live, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors.